What's up, YouTube? This is Royal Spartan 125 back for another great reaction. This is 10 horror movies where evil wins. Ooh. And it is by WhatCulture. And as always, I will leave two links in the description below for the video and the channel. If you like what you see here, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. There's a big red button down below. Visit me on Twitch when I'm streaming. Just head to my schedule, it'll tell you when I'm streaming. Let's jump in.
Horror movies are ostensibly about evil. Sometimes it's flagrant evil, sometimes it is insidious evil, sometimes it is all children are inherently evil, but it is always in there in some capacity. That's because the sort of thematic threats that exist in other genres never really translate as scary. Yes, the global conquest presented in most action films clearly marks out the antagonists as actually bad, but they seldom have you scurrying behind the sofa and leaving bedroom lights on. Evil is always a required presence because horror movies are, when you break them down, moral tales. They thrive as a medium that encourages society to learn some valuable lessons about how we live our lives and ultimately overcome it for the betterment of all involved. In short, you can't beat evil unless it's there in the first place, and we're all born sinners, but that doesn't mean it always gets beaten. Many classic horror movies have contented themselves with presenting a terrifying story without having to wrap it up nicely at the end, making evil the star of the show from start to finish. Well, that's one way of getting a message across. I am the bad guy, Ash from WhatCulture, and these are 10 horror movies where evil wins. 10. The Omen. If there's one thing better than an ending where evil wins, it is one where the forces of good unknowingly have a major part in helping it to do so. While I'm not publicly advocating for the murder of all young children who cause a scene at a birthday party, I'm sure it's entirely excusable in cases where they're revealed to literally be the Antichrist. So it goes that after losing their newborn infant in childbirth and then secretly adopting Damien at the suggestion of a priest, American diplomat Robert Thorne realises he might have dropped a bit of a clanger. As a result, Robert hauls his adoptive son onto an altar in an attempt to ritually sacrifice him in some OTT apology to the man upstairs. At the crucial moment though, the police arrive and, seeing a child about to be given the ready meal film lid before microwaving treatment, gun Robert down. Smash cut to the funeral and Damien is seen walking off into the sunset with no less than the President of the United States. Well done, officers. 9. The Descent. Alright, I take it back. If there's one thing better than an ending where evil wins, it is one where you genuinely think the good guys have won, only to have the salty chips of hope snatched away from you by the swooping seagull of reality. Desperate to escape a series of underground caves, our plucky gang of spelunkers are slowly whittled down by a subspecies of vicious cave-dwelling monsters. Throats are ripped out, skulls are bashed in, some of them get eaten alive, but at long last, Sarah manages to scramble her way up to freedom. She finds a car, drives away, and all looks about as well as can be expected. Then, of course, it's revealed she's just hallucinating. She comes to and finds herself back in the dingy depths with nothing but a comforting vision of her dead daughter and an absurdly well-iced cake for company. Alright then, you win this one, crawlers. 8. Eden Lake. Arguably what's scarier than simply the fact that evil wins in Eden Lake is the believable way in which that evil unfolds. What's arguably even scarier than that still is Michael Fassbender's accent. An under-the-radar British horror gem, Eden Lake tells the story of a young couple seeking a romantic getaway in a remote part of the countryside. However, their attempts at enjoying the 18 minutes of direct sunlight that the country gets at the height of summer are interrupted by a gang of delinquent teenagers with a taste for violence. With Steve bleeding to death after proposing, Jenny makes a break for freedom, and by both her hand and their own, a number of the group are killed in the process. She crashes a car during the escape and awakens to find herself in the home of the children's parents. They are, unsurprisingly, uninterested in her side of the story, and the movie ends with 3 of them setting about her in a bathroom, while Ute-in-Chief Brett deletes the video evidence. It's pretty harrowing. 7. The Cabin in the Woods. The Cabin in the Woods takes the cliché.
I've seen this one. I've seen this one. It is a great movie. One of the very rare horror comedy movies. Right up there with them is American Werewolf in London, which was the first ever horror comedy that did it right, in a way. And you may not know this, but when it first was released, some people advertised it as a horror, some people advertised it as a comedy. Nobody knew how to market it, because I'd never seen anything like it before. This is something brand new.
Woods. The Cabin in the Woods takes the cliched American monster slasher genre to its logical conclusion, the eradication of all humanity by an ancient 50-foot-high living hand. Presenting us with the horror dynamic we all know and or love, a motley gang of a whore, an athlete, a scholar, a fool and a virgin, the film's words, not mine, find life spiralling entirely out of control in a titular cabin in some equally titular woods.
When she said the athlete, I thought she said Ben Affleck. I did. And then she said Ben Affleck. But then I realized she meant athlete. And I was like, oh, okay.
It transpires that their deaths are a part of a ritualistic sacrifice designed to appease a terrifying subterranean race of ancient deities. A happy ending of sorts is on the cards when Dana the Virgin is told she can freely escape the horrors if she is willing to kill Marty the Fool as the final part of the ceremony. In the end, though, they both mutually decide that humanity isn't really worth saving, share a joint, and ungrudgingly await the global reckoning their decision is gonna bring about. Fair enough. 6. Jeepers Creepers. Being pursued by the Creeper, an ancient creature which awakens every 23rd spring for 23 days to feast on the fresh body parts of whichever humans smelled on most like fear, the movie's never really a case of whether our protagonists will defeat it, only whether they might survive it. They don't, for the most part. After racking up a surprisingly meaty body count and laying waste to every on-duty officer in the local police station, the beastie corners our terrified brother-sister combo. Deciding he can only carry one of them back to his hideout, Trish valiantly offers herself in place of her brother. However, after sampling the goods with a quick lick, the Creeper remembers he hates being told what to do and flies away with Dari instead. He pulls his eyes out, hops into his truck, and merrily toots the horn as he drives off into the sunset. Or something to that effect, anyway. 5. Drag Me to Hell. Comfortably Sam Raimi's second scariest work, the first of course being that jazz club scene from Spider-Man 3, Drag Me to Hell tells the story of an enraged woman named Ganoush and a bank employee named Christine she sentences to death. After denying Ganoush an extension on a mortgage payment, Ganoush curses a button from Christine's coat and imbues it with a dark spirit that causes grotesque hallucinations. Her life unravels, those around her begin to die, and in a matter of days, the demon will literally drag her, kicking and screaming, into the depths of hell. I'm not saying that it's a bit of an overreaction, but I am thinking it incredibly loudly. Thinking she has successfully passed the curse back onto the Ganoush woman, Christine somehow manages to mix up a small unmarked envelope that contains a button with a small unmarked envelope that contains a coin. A trivial mistake for a seamstress, a fatal one for her, as the demons immediately arrive to seal her fate. I mean, it is called Drag Me to Hell, not Hand Me the Correct Parcel. 4. I Saw the Devil. After Kim Soo-hyun's fiancé is mutilated and murdered by serial killer Kyung-chul, the Secret Service agent tracks down, stalks, and begins to gradually torture his target in an effort to exact retribution. He knows his every move, and routinely appears out of nowhere to save his victim and gravely wound him in the process. But he enjoys it too much, and after Kyung-chul overhears crucial information about Kim Soo-hyun's plan, he tracks down his father and his sister and kills and disfigures them respectively. This triggers the endgame, and although Soo-hyun enacts the ultimate punishment by having Kyung-chul's own family walk in on him as he's decapitated by his own guillotine, he suffers a total mental breakdown in the process. Having turned down several opportunities to bring him to justice, his own evil eventually wins out. By the time he realises this, it's too late. 3. 7. Without question, still one of the greatest twist endings in cinema history, 7 still shocks to this day because of the stunning realisation that you have not actually been watching the type of film that you think you have. For all 95% of it plays out like a sinister but nonetheless procedural police thriller, the whole thing is actually one man's twisted and perfectly executed plan to condemn the sinful world he sees around him. Having seen the grisly deaths of what he viewed to be the embodiments of gluttony, pride, lust, greed and sloth, John Doe takes detectives Mills and Somerset out to a remote location to reveal his final 2 victims before promising to turn himself in and confess to everything. Then, in one of the most iconic moments in cinema, a courier arrives with a box containing the head of Detective Mills's wife. The twist is that Doe coveted the normal, happy life the detective had, making him the representation of envy. This unspeakable trauma pushes a grief-stricken Mills to gun him down on the spot, becoming wrath and completing the cycle put in motion from the very first murder. Evil wins out in the end, but in truth, it had won from the very start. 2. Virtually every found footage movie. Allow me a moment to play with your imagination here. Place yourself as one of the protagonists in a found footage movie. In fact, let's go the whole hog with this and place yourself in the favourite found footage movie as the person holding the camera. You're Hood in Cloverfield, you're Pablo in Wreck, you're the woman with the leaky nose in Blair Witch.
Yeah.
Now imagine things turn out differently, and after your misadventures, you are safely and soundly returned home. Picture yourself standing in the middle of your house with the camera you've been clinging to during the ordeal still in your hand. Are you going to sit down and start to compile the footage, thus reliving the horrors you've just witnessed? No, you're very obviously not going to do that. You're going to either erase the footage or just simply stick the entire camera immediately into the toilet and bash it with the plunger until it fits around a U-bend. Found footage movies only really work when evil has won. Characters are dead and the footage is literally found, not politely handed over. That's not to say it never happens, but really, found footage is a stockpile of evil wins by its very nature. 1. The Last House on the Left. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking that The Last House on the Left has a reasonably heroic and roundly just ending, given that all the immensely very bad people's uppance duly comes. However, is that really the message here? It is not. Things drastically spiral out of control when Krug and co return to their motel room, and being on the run from the authorities, realise that 2 young girls are there by invitation of Krug's son, and they cannot be allowed to drop them in it. Paige is killed and Mari left for dead in a lake after making a break for freedom. After the baddies happen upon Mari's parents' holiday home seeking aid, the reality of the situation is revealed, with these horrible folk getting the tables turned on them entirely. While you're rooting for the parents, they're presented with the moral conundrum of simply escaping with a barely alive Mari, or, as it transpires, murdering the family and leaving Krug paralysed with his head in a microwave. They could have overcome evil, but they simply became it instead. And that's our list. What other horrors should be up here? Share your thoughts in the comment section below.
Well, that's really subjective, isn't it? I mean, I thought that the ending of that movie was great. I loved it. Seeing the bad guys getting their comeuppance, and in the end, you know, they didn't want the risk that those people would try and track them down and kill them. They did it when they had the home advantage. Okay. Me ranting about these movies. Yeah, so that's the end of the video. If you've got this far, thank you. Don't forget to like the video if you like my reactions. Hit that subscribe button. It helps my channel grow. Join me on Twitch. Go to the comment section. You know all this stuff. I've said it all before. And I am out of here.